We are moving quickly next to talk about money. Yes, money. We all know the downturn post-COVID. We know which sectors will definitely, some sectors will be greatly affected, others mildly, but in general, everybody has been affected by this COVID situation, pandemic that we are experiencing. But then it is important to get some very good nuggets when it comes to managing your money. And we are privileged, ladies and gentlemen, to actually the CEO and the chairman of board of directors of the New Frontier Limited. Prior to this, his role, he served as the MD of ASOS Savings and Loans, and also served as an executive director for investment at Abuja Investment and Property Development Company. If you need wisdom when it comes to managing your money, it is definitely this man, this noble man who is registered with the U.S. National Association of Securities Dealers Series 7 Investment Bank representative. He's actually got a B in economics from the University of Sussex, and he has an MPhil in development economics from Darwin College. He's an associate of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. Ladies and gentlemen, this noble personality we have here, Mr. Hassan Usman. How are you doing, sir?
Good afternoon. Very well, thank you. Nice to be on. Thank you.
Yesterday, Lady Mweze started some money management secrets, and we know that you're going to continue with giving us more secrets as to how we can manage our money, and we definitely look forward to this. So, ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome once again Mr. Hassan Usman.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. It's a pleasure to be on. I hope you can see my presentation. Can you see it? Yes, I imagine so. Okay. Thanks for having me. As a husband and a father to 4 daughters and a brother to 4 sisters, I think I qualify as a full member of the Alliance. So I'm glad to be on. I intend talking about, I think money management secret sounds a bit too high level. It's basically small tips, commonsensical tips really, for a small business. I'm talking more from a company, small business perspective rather than from a personal finance perspective. Although towards the end, I'll talk 1 or 2 things on personal finance. So whether you've been in business for years or just simply getting started, money management is a very crucial part of the success of any small business. And you get it wrong, you're doomed to failure. You get it right, then you have the path to sustainable growth. I intend breaking up my talk into 3 broad areas. One is basically on planning. Secondly is on how to manage, and then thirdly on how to grow. When I talk about plan, I'm basically stating that for a small business, you need to have a very clear objective. Yeah? So what's your objective as a business? What do you want to achieve? It's also important that you have a disciplined approach towards implementing your objectives. Have proper corporate governance. You may think, well, I'm a small company. Why do I need to bother about corporate governance? We'll get to that. It's quite important. And then finally, talk about sources of capital. Where do you find the money from, and how do you begin to deploy it and eventually grow? Second broad theme is on managing. So in managing the business, you're talking about budgeting and control. How do I set a budget? How do I control my expenditure and so on? How do I monitor and track performance? Looking at elements of liquidity and cash flow. What do I need to do to remain liquid as a business? How do I ensure I have proper books of accounts, on the bookkeeping side? And then very importantly as well, being able to separate my personal income from the business earnings. A lot of us go into that confusion. We own a business. We think that the money that comes into the business is actually ours. No, it belongs to the company. And I'll talk a bit more about that. And then finally is to talk about how to grow using savings and investments. Like I've mentioned, a lot of these things are commonsensical. I believe that for a platform like this, most of what I'm about to say is already familiar to most people. So I'll just simply reiterate the points as I go along. In terms of the planning, so firstly, you've got to set very clear objectives for your business and then use a disciplined approach towards achieving your objectives. What do I mean by that? It's important that you ensure that every goal that you have ties back to your mission and to your vision. as a business, no matter how small you are, you've got to have a mission, you've got to have a vision. You don't have to go and start writing some very bold vision statement or a bold mission statement, but even in your head, mentally, you have to have a picture of where you want to go to in terms of your vision, and on the mission side, how you intend doing that. Yeah, so these are the very broad things in having a mission and a vision. So whatever goals you're setting for yourself have to tie into your mission and to your vision. As much as possible, secondly, make your goals descriptive. So you should be able to describe your goals. It should not be some amorphous, abstract thing, yeah? Something that you can describe, that you can mention to your employees and they can buy into it, or your co-workers and they can buy into it. Thirdly is to also ensure that your goals are realistic. Now, you can't say, for instance, that you're starting off a business tomorrow, you want to start distributing LPG gas, say, within Abuja, and then by end of next year, you want to be the national leader in distributing LPG across the entire country. It's just not realistic. So the path towards having sustainable growth and managing your money effectively is being realistic in terms of setting your goals. And linked to that is to ensure that your goals are appropriately sized. So you know what you want to achieve and it's something which is attainable. Next element is to ensure that the goals that you're setting for yourself are measurable. Yeah, it's very easy to set a goal that you cannot measure, and if you cannot measure it, you cannot track it. So you can't monitor, are you on the path towards achieving that goal or not? So as much as possible, set a goal which you can measure. Yeah, so for instance, I'm setting up a tailoring business. Yeah, I want to be able to reach 500 people by the end of this year. I want to have about 1,000 customers by the end of next year. That sort of thing that you can measure. Next item is to consider what actions you will take to achieve these goals. These are really the tactical things that you need to do. What do I need to do to achieve my goals? So I'm setting up, for instance, a soap making business, where I'm selling soap to the general public. I also require, for instance, a NAFDAC certification. Or if it's a food business, I require NAFDAC certification. So those are the sort of actions that I'm talking about. When you're setting your goals, you know what actions you need to take in order to achieve those goals. The next thing is then to identify what resources that you will require in achieving these goals. And these resources come in different forms. It could be cash resources. It could be in terms of personnel, people that you need. It could even be in terms of just a network, tapping into a network, friends, family, and so on, that can help you to achieve the objective. So a good objective must basically be able to tie back into your mission and to your vision. It must, as much as possible, be descriptive. It should be realistic. It should be concise. You should be able to measure it. It should be achievable, and you need to have the required resources in order to achieve that objective. Second element is to choose a disciplined approach to achieving your objectives. What does that discipline entail? The two minimum elements, in my opinion. One is having a budget. A budget allows you to estimate what you expect to come in. It allows you to estimate what your expenditure will be. So you can track your performance. You can say, I want to sell to XYZ party over the next 12 months. And you're normally comparing your performance against your budget. So you have that benchmark and you're working towards a benchmark. So that's one element of the control of the discipline. Second element is to have a good internal control policy. Again, it's very easy to say, I'm a small business. Why do I need to have internal control? It's just too much English here. But you intend growing. You don't want to find that you've grown so big that having a proper policy becomes very difficult. If you intend growing and you got your targets set very well, it's important you have a clear internal control policy from the get-go. So things like when you sell, how do you actually document the sale? When you're buying something, where do you buy it from? How do you ensure it's been brought in? When it's brought in, is it documented somewhere? If you have a store, for instance, and you're selling, let's say, groceries and so on, people will supply you with different things. When they supply the things, who ticks off and ensures these things have come in? Who ensures that from the inventory that you have, X amount has been released to go into the shop? With a very good internal control policy, you can literally plug in a lot of the leakages that most businesses have. It's inevitable, you're going to have leakages, yeah, but having a very strong and firm internal control policy means you can minimize the amount of leakages in your company. Next thing is proper corporate governance. I'm still talking about the planning stage. And there are a few elements. So you may think, well, I'm a small entity, I don't need to worry about these things. But having a good foundation creates a company culture. With a very clear company culture, as the company grows, as your business grows, whoever is coming into it is coming into a structure that's already established. They're not coming with different ethics, with different thoughts of how the business should operate. You as a leader have to set that clear direction. You know, what are you willing to do? What are the ethics of the organization? And for a growing business, really, this should be non-negotiable, operating according to ethics, yeah? Because people come in, they see that culture is established, they fall into line. If they come in and they find there's no system or structure of good ethics and so on, they do whatever they want to do. And that's a recipe for chaos. It's a recipe for not growing your company. It's a recipe for eventually even going bust. So the ethics are very important. You have to have a system of administration, no matter how small you are. Yeah, you want to order for things, there's a process for doing so, there's a structure. You try as much as possible to stay within that. You have employees, how are they administered? What kind of policies govern their employment contracts? What sort of incentives do they have? All these come under the administration. Thirdly is compliance. And this is an area where a lot of companies fall short. Compliance is very important. We live in a society. Society has rules and regulations. You run afoul of the regulations. Not only can you lose your business, you can also run afoul of your potential customers. Compliance comes in different forms. So whether it's in terms of the laws or local edicts, or even in terms of what your industry association requires you to do. Yeah, so there's got to be a very clear format for ensuring you comply. And then finally, in terms of good governance, is having an effective risk management system. What do I mean by that? As a business, constantly we're taking all kinds of risks every day. Even if you do not think about it in a conscious sort of way, you're taking risks all the time. So for instance, you're selling something. Some people you can sell to, you can grant them credit. 30 days, you can say, okay, I'm selling you XYZ item. Within 30 days, you come back and you pay me. And more or less, you've taken a view, these guys will pay you. Sometimes you think, this guy's not a good risk. Yeah, I can't take that risk. So it's on a cash and carry basis. That is essentially the sort of risk management that I'm talking about. So you may have some framework in your mind with which you're assessing who is a good risk and who is not a good risk. It's important as much as possible to try and formalize that process, document it, because the company will grow. As the company grows, it's no more in your head. You have employees. You have to have a system. Your employees need to know what they need to do at different points in time. They need to know what risks they can take and what they can't. So having these things documented and formalized is very important. These may seem like very small things, but believe me, they're critical building blocks towards having a successful enterprise and eventually generating the cash flows that will lead on to wealth and lead you on to managing your money in whatever way you want to. Next item still on the planning is the sources of capital. So you're setting up your business, you're starting off, where does the money come from? You can think in terms of equity or in terms of debt. Now, when I talk about debt here, I'm talking about going to borrow from, say, a bank or something along those lines. In terms of equity financing, it could be from your savings. So you work for a while, you've saved some money, you can plow it into that. Maybe if you're fortunate enough, you've inherited something, you can plow it into the business. Sometimes one of the most effective sources of equity will be family and friends. So you appeal to your friends, you appeal to your family, you get something from them. They may give you something to start up the business. Eventually, you intend paying them back. So equity, even though it sounds like it's a fancy concept, it really is not. Yeah, it comes from different sources. And as long as you have access to family and friends, you have a veritable pool, I beg your pardon, of equity. Yeah, I mean, let me give you an example. So you're starting off a business, and you require maybe ₦1 million to start that business, and 200,000 naira of that amount is going to go towards renting premises. maybe that uncle that you have has a disused shop in the market that's not been using. It's not generating any income at all from him. You can say, okay, let me please have your shop. I will pay you down the line. So in getting that shop, you've saved yourself 200,000 naira upfront in terms of the equity that you require. It is really semi-equity. Yeah, and down the line, you start generating the cash flows, the money is coming in, you can go back and you can pay him. But you've used semi-equity to get started. So there are different ways in which you can get the equity. On the debt finance side, is really going to a bank or going to an established financial institution to borrow, where they will charge you interest, or they will have some kind of a profit share on what you're doing. I mentioned some things about corporate governance, about keeping books and so on. Without having proper corporate governance, without having books of account and so on, it is almost impossible getting debt finance. Yeah, unless you have a very rich uncle or aunt somewhere who's willing to take a chance on you. But in most cases, the majority of people don't have that kind of access. So you have to have a proper organization or proper setup that will enable you to go to an institution and to borrow, 1 million, 3 million, 5 million, whatever it is that you require to get started. And you've got to be disciplined. So you take on the debt, it has to be repaid. You'll most likely pay interest. It'll have a tenor. It may be 1 year, maybe 3 years. As much as possible, you try and stay to that. Yeah, without restructuring, you pay the loan as and when due. And you find that when you do that and you generate the credibility, you have a reputation. It means that when you want to expand down the line, people are willing to take a chance on you because they know you have the integrity. They know if you say, I will do X, and you commit to it, you will definitely get it done. Next item, budgeting and control. So you have a budget. It's important that you periodically compare how you're doing against your budget. It's impossible to properly manage your money if you don't set a budget, even on a personal basis, but especially for a company. And in doing so, thanks to technology and so on, there are budget tools that one can use that will enable you to track your expenses, enable you to plan for the future, to economize when you need to plan for expansion, and to make a profit. If you don't have that already, I suggest you can Google it. There's so many budget software tools that are available, and quite a few of them are actually free. So you can just simply go onto Google, Google that, and then download a budget app that you can use to track your expenses and just help you manage your money. And you find that extremely useful. It helps you to have the discipline required to grow a business and to do the needful for your business. It's also very important at all times to try to have some cash available to meet your contingencies. So just because you have a budget and you've exceeded, does not mean that whatever cash you generate has to go into some kind of expenditure. You save the money, you generate a savings pool that can enable you to do expansion, etc. down the line. Liquidity and cash flow. Now, what do I mean by liquidity? Basically means accessible funds. Yeah, so it's crucial for a small business to, as much as possible, maintain surplus cash. Liquidity is important. It enables you to have financing when you need to. It gives you access to credit. The day you require credit from a bank, if you go to the bank and you say, look, I've banked with you for the last 12, 24 months, for instance, and you look at my cash flow, they can see that you have liquidity on a regular basis. It makes the bank that much more willing to lend you money. Yeah, so having things properly documented, ensuring that your money goes through the bank, ensuring that the liquidity is visible to your bank, enables you down the line to access credit in the event you need to. And you never know, yeah, there may be a situation where down the line something comes up, you need to take advantage of a situation, you need to go to a bank to borrow money. If you've done all that hard work in the past, it just means that you're almost certainly going to get the credit that you require. Liquidity also enables you to make smart decisions. What do I mean by that? If you have the liquidity, it means that you can step back, you can take a view on things that come across, come across your business. So you're not forced into taking rash decisions or decisions under pressure. Yeah, I've seen people who set up a business and they've expanded so much, and they've ended up, because the liquidity is tight, they've ended up going to some money lender or something of the sort and borrowing money, and they pay some exorbitant interest rates, which they never can recover from. And eventually the business goes bust. Yeah. Having the liquidity means that you have the capacity to step back and to take decisions that are smart, that are not necessarily under pressure. Yeah, the way you can evaluate the decisions and take the best possible decision. Liquidity also enables you to make precautionary expenses. What do I mean by precautionary expenses? Sometimes an opportunity may come up where you're a growing business, you want to take advantage of an opportunity. Yeah, if you have the liquidity, you can afford to go ahead and take that opportunity. It may be buying a new piece of equipment. It may be expanding into a new place. It may even be doing some sort of branding or marketing and so on, which ordinarily you'd not be able to afford. But you have the liquidity, you can do these things. So it is important as a business that you have liquidity at all times, that you preserve your cash. You don't spend all that you have. And again, this is a very commonsensical thing, but it's something that requires a lot of discipline in terms of one's approach. So talking about strategies for positive cash flows, how do you generate positive cash flows? How do you maintain or sustain them? You've got to be able to expand your market. So as a business you've started, you have a market, you're generating some cash flows. In order to grow those cash flows, you need to expand your market. You need to know what market you're serving. How do you get into that market? How do you entrench yourself in the market? You also need to adopt price competitive strategies. So you can't be competitive if your rivals or competitors are selling things that may be 5 or 10% cheaper than you're doing, and for the same kind of service in the same kind of location. Yeah, it's a recipe for going bust unless you can show that what you're selling is a premium product. So you need to have an awareness of what the market is doing, and as much as possible benchmark against that. Of course, if you feel you have a premium product, then you can afford to charge a lot more than the market is doing. And hopefully the validation for that is that the market decides to come and buy what you're selling. But if you feel you have a premium product and you're selling it at a price 20% more expensive than others and nobody's buying, then clearly something is wrong. You need to go back and reassess your strategy. Reduce irrelevant expenses. Now, this is something that's very, very easy. So you're a business, you have a budget. Maybe your budget said you're going to make revenue of 10 million this year, and 12.5 million comes, and suddenly you decide, oh, that car that I wanted, let me go and spend that extra 2 million on buying a car. Do you need it? You're buying a car, it's 2 million. Is it going to aid your business? That asset that you bought, which is the car, is a depreciating asset. So next year, guess what? That car that you bought for 2 million, how much is it worth? 1.25 million. The year after that is worth what? 700,000. So do you really need to do that sort of thing? So you need to ensure that as much as possible, you reduce irrelevant expenses. Yeah, you curb. It's really about discipline. You curb unnecessary expenditure. Next is to adopt cash saving strategies to meet operating expenses. Fortunately, with technology, one of the good things that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 months, for instance, is that businesses can clearly see a path for cash saving strategies. So, for instance, you're a business, you're growing. In the past, it would have required you maybe traveling to Lagos or some other such place. When you're going there, you're spending money on plane tickets, you're spending money on hotel accommodation, you're spending money on the car hire. Guess what? With technology, with things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams, etc., you need not do those things. Yeah, you can have some savings. I'm not saying it'll eliminate altogether such, but certainly it'll reduce the amount of traveling. It'll reduce the amount of expenditure on hotels, the expenditure on cabs, etc. Of course, for those who are involved in those businesses, it's going to be a massive problem. But for any other business that has to spend on such expenses, these are now cash saving things that they can take advantage of. Next thing is to evaluate multiple vendors. Now, no matter how small you are, you will be using different vendors, or you have 1 or 2 favorite vendors. Look around, shop around. The guy that you've been used to using that sells you whatever it is, yeah, for X naira, maybe he's got complacent, maybe he's not the most efficient, and maybe you're paying a lot more than you need to pay. If you have multiple vendors that you're talking to at all times, you have a sense of what the market is doing. You can moderate whatever excess charges you have from your vendors. So you end up getting the most efficient prices possible. Yeah. So in that way, you're also saving cash. You're getting positive cash flows. So never say to yourself, "Oh, I have this is my customer." You know, like you say, you go to the market, Mr. X is my customer, and you keep on going to him all the time without checking to see what other people are doing. So as much as possible, evaluate, have multiple vendors, check prices. End of the day, you're a business and you want to optimize your returns. And that means making savings as much as possible. Making savings means getting the best possible prices wherever you can. Finally, is to establish efficient sales policies and cash collection strategies, in terms of positive cash flows. So your staff, your colleagues need to know what the sales policies are. Are we selling? What are the rules for selling at discounts? Who gets a discount? What extent of discount can be given to X person for buying or for selling, whatever it is. There's going to be very clear rules and policies for those sorts of things. Next thing in terms of managing your money is efficient bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is very critical towards managing your money. At the end of the day, it allows you to have timely decision making. So what are the elements of bookkeeping? Essentially, you want to establish the use of financial statements, having a balance sheet, having cash flow statements, having income statements, and so on. Again, these sound like they're very fancy things. You're a small business, you're thinking, why do I need to go through all this wahala? It is important. You know, you have numbers, you know whether you're making a profit or not. You're able to go to banks when you need the funding, they can help you. When you talk about, for instance, the kind of intervention funding that CBN is now making available, if you don't have these sorts of records, it's almost impossible to access and to benefit from them. Yeah, where you can get money at 5% for maybe 2-3 years or thereabouts. And really, you need not do these things yourself. The world has changed. There are companies that specialize in doing these things. And there was a talk earlier about outsourcing. You can outsource some of these functions. So you can get companies that simply specialize in keeping your books, a firm of accountants, for instance, and you allow them to worry about that. Yeah, so you don't have to have them as your employees. You pay a fee. They maintain these books for you. They keep you abreast of what's going on a monthly basis. You know exactly how much cash has come in, what you've spent, what profits you've made, and so on. If you are the DIY kind of person, you could also practice the use of Excel to create financial statements. And it's not very difficult, to be honest. You go into YouTube, there are all manner of videos where you can find on how to create your own financial statement. So if you're willing to spend the time and invest a bit of time and effort in that, you can create an Excel sheet which can enable you to record your financial statements. And so you can monitor that on a regular basis. Of course, as you grow, you would have to think about getting an accountant or outsourcing to a firm of accountants who will do that. It's important that you reconcile your chart of accounts on a regular basis. So you made sales. Your books are saying you sold items worth £500,000 naira. What's the bank saying? Check your bank records against your sales records. Yeah? And if there's a gap, it means somewhere there's probably a receivable. You sold to somebody on credit, they're yet to pay you. So you should be able to do the reconciliation, know where that gap is, and then have a clear process for following up. So you can go to Ms. X and say, oh, by the way, you said you pay us within 15 days. It's now 14 days. We haven't seen your money. Please send the money in, and so on. And that's linked on to the next point that I have, which is to track your sales. So on a regular basis, you're tracking what are you selling, where are you selling it, and so on. And you need a bit of analytics. So the bookkeeping enables you to have the records. With the records, you can find out where your sales coming from, who are your best customers. And so you can target them. You can send out, for instance, ads targeted at specific market segments because you know they like certain items. Something comes up, you target them, you send something out, you say, okay, you can get a discount if you do A, B, C, and most times they will respond to it. Next thing is having a process for depositing your sales. It's very important. So you have a business, you've made some sales, those sales ought to go into a bank. Yeah, there's no point keeping them in some safe or somewhere in the shop. If you're forced to, you can do that, but I'd always caution against it as much as possible. Try and get the cash end of the day into somewhere safe. If you have a bank nearby, you can deposit in the bank. If you don't have that, then as a last resort, you can keep in the safe and then have the cash out to to the bank the next day. But if you can, it's best that you use payment systems, so electronic transactions rather than using cash to transact. So if somebody comes as a customer, if it's possible, and I advise that very strongly, let them pay you using a card, using POSs and so on, rather than physically giving you cash. Getting cash should be an absolute last resort. And if it's a large amount, somebody wants to come in and pay cash for something, you can negotiate with the guy and say, well, look, you can pay it into our bank number, blah, blah, blah. Once you've done that, we can send things across to your location and so on. Bookkeeping, having proper bookkeeping also means that you're able to see what your business expenses are and you can prioritize them. So when it comes to cash that's coming, maybe cash is a bit tight, you're thinking, what do I do? You pay the business expenses first of all. Your salary may come in last. You're the business owner. Yes, it's a business expense, but you can afford to prioritize and say the other expenses will come first. So you're paying your suppliers, you're paying the regulatory authorities. You don't want to be caught out not paying taxes, for instance, because that comes with lots of penalties and so on. And you could end up with very difficult situations with the tax authorities. So you prioritize your business expenses. Money is coming in, you sort them out, you sort out your tax obligations, and you have peace of mind generally. So bookkeeping is very important. You need to have your books properly kept, very clear accounting records. Once in a while, you'll also have the tax people come and check what you've done, what your record is saying, and they'll almost certainly start off by checking from your bank account back to your books. And I've seen lots of businesses where their books do not reflect what's in the bank. When the tax guys come, they look at what's in your bank and they give you a tax charge. And it's very difficult to say that should not be the tax amount. And if you do not comply with that, they seal you up. So having proper books means you can avoid all that wahala that comes with FRS and so on. Next item, and this is an extremely important thing, is to be able to separate your personal from your business earnings. Now, as I was saying earlier, a lot of us make that mistake. We set up a business, we think, what the heck, I own the business, so why should I worry about any kind of payments? Why should I worry about whether it's a company money or my money? I can do whatever I want to do with it. No, you can't. The way to set about having a sustainable business is to separate the two. You put yourself on a salary. Every month, you pay yourself a salary. Beyond that, whatever remains is money that belongs to the business. It is available for growing the business. The company is, in most cases, a limited liability company or maybe an enterprise. It has a life separate from you. One day, maybe you'll die, the business will continue. So we need to have that mindset that the company money is not my money. They're two complete separate things. I am the business owner. I am also an employee of the business, and I get paid a salary for doing so. At the end of the year, the business has made a profit. It's documented. Profit is declared. I can pay myself dividends from the profits that have been made. But it's not I simply put my hands into the till and I take the cash as and when I want to. And this is something that is very important from a discipline perspective. You need to be disciplined in this approach. You need to be very clear that the money that comes into the company is not your money. It is money that is for the business. You are on a salary. At the end of the day, there's a profit. You get dividends after paying government its share. Finally, growing the company. So you've done all this, you've planned, you've managed, the company is doing well, it's making money. You need to save for the rainy day. You need to also invest. Savings and investments, they serve as security for contingent expenses. Sometime you will need to have extra expenditure, legitimate business expenses. You need to find a source for those expenses. From your savings, from your investments, you have access to that. They represent a good source of finance for deficit net working capital. So there will be times, lean times, when your expenses are much more than the revenue coming in. And so you have a gap. If you have savings, you have investments that are near liquid, that are almost cash, it means that you can meet these deficits without having to go and borrow from the bank. Savings as well mean you can go into expansion, you can expand your business without having to worry about bank funding. And in most cases, in fact, the bank will not even give you money to expand unless they can see also you're putting aside some proportion of the expansion money. So you want to expand and you require ₦1 million. The bank may say, okay, to show me that you're serious about it, you put down 200,000 naira and we'll lend you 800,000 naira. From your savings, from your investments, you have the cash to make that down payment. It enables you to create new business lines as part of the expansion. It enables you to make short-term investments. So you've saved, you have a bit of cash, surplus cash, you can invest in different forms, whether it's in terms of treasury bills, it's in terms of the stock market. Although, if you're looking to have a very liquid form of investment, I wouldn't say go for the stock market unless it's some very, very liquid shares. These are like really top class blue chip firms. Otherwise, the stock market, it may take a little while in being able to sell those shares to get the cash that you require to do your investment. From your savings as well, you can make diversification plans. You can go into other areas. So you may well be in soap making business. Next thing you say you want to go into retailing, you have some savings, you could do that. The savings and investments also will improve your credit rating. So when people see that you have saved diligently, you have investments, when you go to borrow, in most cases, the interest rate that you will get is lower than what a contemporary who hasn't got that savings culture will be able to get from the bank, because you're lower risk, because they can see through the savings, through the investments, that you are disciplined and you have a disciplined approach towards growing your business. For that extra cash, you can earn interest on your short-term investments, and it can also serve as collateral on loan facilities. So all in all, you can add value to your business, a lot of value to your business by managing your money very well, by having a disciplined approach, by planning, and also by saving and by growing. When I talk about value, what am I talking about? There are several ways in which you can add value. Now, one of the most underappreciated forms of value are the investments, are the incentives, I beg your pardon, that the government provides. Yeah, there's a whole treasure trove of incentives that are available. I would urge you to go into the NIPC, it's the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission website. You go there, there's a whole compendium of incentives across different sectors: mining, retailing, manufacturing, all sorts of things, yeah? And the incentives that are available, from different federal ministries, from different MDAs and so on. Just have a look in there and see which ones relate to your business, and you'll be amazed what you find. You'll be amazed how much you can save in terms of taxes, how much you can get in terms of grants, and so on. So I would really urge very strongly the one way to manage your money better and to conserve your expenditure or expenses is to go to the NIPC website and check out the list of incentives that are available to businesses. Another way of adding value is by investing in personal development. Yeah, so yes, we've gone to university, we have a degree, yes, we've worked, our business is growing, but we're never perfect. Yeah, we need to keep on developing ourselves at all points in time. That means investing in ourselves. That means doing courses. And again, with the advent of technology, it need not be a physical course or program where you travel somewhere from the comfort of your house and your bedroom. You can take on a course. You can do it online. And there are quite a few of such free courses if you want them. Others you pay for, but almost invariably you find the right program, you find it adds immense value to you and to your business. Yeah. And at the end of the day, really, no one's going to invest in you. You know what you require, so you have to invest in yourself. Next point in terms of adding value is being able to assess business risk. So we wake up every day, we assess what risk we'll take, what we'll not take. We know our capacity or appetite for risk. From knowing that capacity and appetite, we can add value to ourselves. We don't want to take on undue risks. Yeah. So whatever we're taking is a calculated risk. It works out, we've added value to ourselves. If it doesn't work out, take it as a learning experience. So you've tried something, it hasn't worked. Fortunately, you're young enough, I hope, and you can learn from that experience. So it means that you have found one way of not doing things, yeah, and you try some other ways. There's no harm in trying something and it does not work out. Nobody's perfect, as I mentioned. If you try something, it does not happen the way you want it to. That's experience. You learn from it, you move on. You don't brood over it. You've learned from it, you have that experience, and you grow. Next way of adding value is improving human capital. So you have your employees or your co-workers, you need to invest in them. It's very easy to say, well, if I invest in my staff and they get skills, somebody else may come and poach them and they leave my organization. Or they may just simply leave and go and set up a competing business. Well, guess what? If you don't add value to their lives, they will leave you anyway. Yeah? If they're not properly trained and they're your frontline people, they are degrading your business. So you want to grow your business, you have to invest in your people. Small things, customer service skills, for instance, service excellence, for instance. You have an accountant improving his bookkeeping or her bookkeeping and so on. So let's not be penny wise, pound foolish. Improving human capital is an absolute must for an organization, no matter how small you are. You don't do it, ultimately it affects your business. It affects you because you're the business owner or you're the main business driver. So please don't compromise on that. Your staff need training, give them the training. If at the end of the day, they've learned from it, they've added something to your business and they move on within a year, so be it. It's difficult. But if you have proper programs in place for improving their skills and you have proper incentives in place for your staff, chances are they will continue working with you because they can see, they believe in the vision of the business, they can see they're being trained, they can see the value proposition of the business, and the incentive structure is right for them. So I would always advocate non-negotiable, improve your human capital, train your staff. Next item is the value in working as cooperatives. Now you're a small business. You don't have leverage, you don't have clout, yeah? No matter where you find yourself. And it's not anything to do with you personally. It's just that people who are selling things to you do not reckon with you because as far as they're concerned, you're not big enough. But if you're part of a cooperative or part of a trade association, that gives you significant market power. It means that as a grouping, you can do things, you can demand terms from suppliers, and you can get the best possible terms. So wherever possible, join a cooperative and work with a cooperative. If you're a farmer and you have a farmers cooperative, please work along with it. If you're in the market and you belong to, for instance, I don't know, the Gold Traders Association or something in the market, you'll be amazed what benefits you can derive from simply acting in concert with other people in your cooperative. So you're not trying to create any kind of oligopolistic situation. You're just simply trying to enhance your power because individually you have no leverage. Collectively, as a cooperative or as an association, you have far more say vis-a-vis bigger players that you'll be faced with. Finally, is the value in terms of networks. At the end of the day, we're all social humans. Yeah. So when we're locked up in our houses because of the coronavirus, after about a month or two, we start getting really disenchanted. It's affecting our mental health because we need people. We need to be going out there, talking to people, seeing people, shaking hands, etc. It's the same thing with building a business. You need to be able to tap into a network. You need to know the right people. You need to have the right network, and that requires a conscious effort. I'm not saying just simply be what do you call it? Obnoxious person in trying to infiltrate networks, but you have to have a clear plan. Who do you require? What do you need? So you need banks. Okay, what banks can you be friendly with? Or you need relationships down the line, maybe with regulators, maybe in NAFTA. Who can you build a network with within NAFTA? Yeah, that will be friendly. Nothing bad about it. You're not going to go and start bribing them. You're simply creating a network, friendships, people that you can tap into as and when necessary. That for me is probably the most important thing in building a business. You can have the best product, you can have all the cash in the world. If you cannot tap into a network that buys into your idea, to your vision, to your product, you will not succeed as a business. So having that network is a very important attribute, and you've got to work on it consciously. So those really are the main things that I want to talk about. In rounding up, I'll just say a few things about personal financial planning. So you built a business, you made some money. You need to also manage your money, your personal money, the way you manage the company money. It means even at a personal level, having a budget. Yeah, on a personal level, you have to have a budget. You have to know what investments you need to make, what you should not be making, You have kids, you want them to go to school, put aside money for school fees and so on. You made some extra cash, you want to indulge. Just once in a while, you can indulge and treat yourself because you made some money, but let it not delve into extravagance. You need to have a certain level of moderation, a level of discipline. You need to know that a lot of things that you come across, I beg your pardon, are things that you want. You don't necessarily need them. So you've got to ask yourself on a personal level and at a business level, what do I need? And make sure that the things that you need, you have enough resources to take care of them. Those that you want, you can create a budget for. When you have that surplus, you can dive into your surplus and indulge yourself once in a while. Let it be once in a while. Let it not be all the time. Yeah, you're building a business. You've got to be disciplined in your approach. Thank you very much. I hope you've learned something from this. Thanks. Hello.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Usman. That was very grateful to management from the personal planning perspective. And today, let me say, you've done true justice to how to make your money and corporate body as a small business. And I'm grateful. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have some questions, please make chat box. Please right session. This is what I have learned. But also chat box what you've learned. And one, search for two, discipline approach. Three, you need a proper corporate governance, even business planning in that always make cash meet up with your contingents. Always make cash up. So, thank you. I have a couple of preparing for whilst my participants also prepares for the question. Sorry. So what I want to find out in managing in corporate financial, are there some basic skills that you need, or you think that for a small business, once you're starting up, you might resources or get, or you need to build up some basic finance? And if it is so, what are they?
So I didn't quite get that. Sorry, I didn't hear you clearly. Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear you. I can hear you now. Yes, I can hear you now.
The first question I would like to ask is, what basic financial skills do I need if I'm a startup or if I'm a small business? Is there a need for me to get some basic financial skills, or I might have to outsource it to an expert when I'm starting up a business?
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think it's nice to have the financial skills. I don't think it is that important. Yeah, people have built very successful businesses without having financial skills. If you have the skills, you know a bit of accounting, a bit of budgeting, fantastic. But don't kill yourself about it. Yeah, it should not stop you from building a business. Once you have some common sense, apologies to Ben Bruce, if you have some common sense, you know what ought to be done, what ought not to be done. You look around, you find some of the most successful businesses that we have. I mean, you go to a market, for instance, and you find a lot of market traders that built very big businesses from very small beginnings. They don't have any kind of financial skills, but they know, they have basic discipline. They know when money is coming. They know how to invest the money. They know how to separate what's business money from what's personal money and so on. So I wouldn't fret myself about not having basic financial skills. If you're a business, you're starting off, that can be outsourced. You can learn. You can learn by going and Googling and so on. But if you don't want to learn or you haven't got the time and patience to do so, you can outsource some of these functions. And an accountant can talk you through them and can help you keep very good books of accounts. So I would not, even though I'm in finance myself, I would not overstate the importance of having financial skills in starting a business. Yeah, it's good to have, but I wouldn't kill myself about not having it.
All right, sorry about that. You lost me, but okay, thank you very much. The next question I would like to ask, when you mentioned corporate governance of small business, but prior to this conference, I've always thought of corporate governance for big corporations and bigger businesses, not for smaller businesses. Why do you think it's really hard for smaller business to even accept the concept of corporate governance? Because that was my mindset. I didn't even think of corporate governance for my small businesses. Why do you think it's so difficult for small business to think of even employing corporate governance?
Well, I think it goes really back to how we set up businesses. We think of business as being our personal pets, if you like, yeah, and we don't see the distinction between the business and me as an individual. And if there's no demarcation there, then I'm thinking, why do I need governance for managing my own business? I think that's part of the mindset. But it's important that we begin to separate the two, because if you want to grow, if you want to down the line be able to access funding sources, if you want to be able to attract good people, you need to have a governance structure. Yeah, so corporate governance is not like some fancy word. Yeah, but having a governance structure is very important. It means that within the company, people need to know who has authority, what kind of authority do they have, what decisions can they make, what needs to be escalated to the boss. If I'm on the shop floor, what level of autonomy do I have as the shop floor person? These all go towards corporate governance. Even though we call it corporate governance and we try and formalize it somewhat, there are things that a lot of us do on a normal, ongoing basis, yeah, and we should not be scared about it. Having proper corporate governance means you're setting up with the right structure. It means that you can grow the right way. It means that you're developing the right culture. If you don't have that governance set up, you don't have the right structure, it becomes very difficult down the line to reset the corporate culture or to reset the business culture. So that governance structure ab initio helps you to create the kind of culture that you want for your business.
So on that note, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
So on that note, for every point of a business, of a firm's growth, does governance actually have a different role to play for every point of a firm's growth?
I would say so. I think that the kind of governance structure that you require for a 10 million naira company will not be the same as what you need for a 1 billion naira company, will not be the same as what you need for a 100 billion naira company. So a company evolves in the same way that all of us evolve as individuals as well. A company evolves. A company starts, it's a small company, it's a small business. As it grows, it needs a different kind of structure. Yeah, and it's very normal. The kind of structure that, let me give an example. The most successful corporate in Nigeria today, domestic homegrown corporate, the Dangote Group, the kind of structure that they had in 1988, yeah, is not what they had in the year 2000. It's certainly not what they have in 2020, because it's grown, it's become a lot more complex, there are a lot more regulations they have to worry about, and so on. But as a small business, starting off, you're operating maybe in a small market somewhere, and you have revenues of 100,000 naira. You don't have to worry too much about governance. Just have a clear structure. People know that you operate, it's a one-man business. Next year, you've grown. You have 5 million naira worth of sales. You've employed 2 people. They need to know what the governance structure is. Even if it's not documented, it needs to be explained to them. They need to know how to operate, what they can do, who they can grant credit, etc. When it gets to a 50 million naira company, again, a different kind of complexity. At that point, maybe FRS starts knocking on your door. The tax authorities, they want you to show your books of account. They want to do your bank statements and so on. And so you need a different structure. So it's part of an evolution process. Yeah, the structure that you require at one level almost certainly will not be what you require when you've grown in leaps and bounds down the line. But
I know
the structure.
Okay. Thank you for that response. And one final question before we wrap up for your session. I know that for entrepreneurs, we think about the future, what is coming up, and one of the things that really the fear of uncertainty is one of the challenges for most entrepreneurs. I want to find out from you, in your opinion, what do you think is the future when it comes to wealth management or money management? We want to align ourselves to the thinking of experts like you, so that planning, we know that okay, let's position our financial planning in such a way that it will meet up with the future. So I just want to find out from you, what in your opinion do you think would be the future? Could artificial intelligence play any role? Could robotics even play any role when it comes to money management?
Absolutely. Like with every other field in life, technology is a great enabler. It's making a big difference. I think you will see, for lack of a better word, the democratization of finance. Yeah, by which I mean anybody can do anything in finance. You don't have to go and worry about getting a financial planner or a financial consultant, because everything is out there available for you. You can do things from the comfort of your house, and we're beginning to see it. 20 years ago, you had to literally physically go into a bank branch to conduct business, yeah, to just do a transfer. You had to go into the bank. There are guys that I know that haven't been to a bank in the last 10 years because they can do things remotely, yeah. And as time goes along, we'll see a lot more of that. We may even begin to see what I call disintermediation of banks, because banks exist to get money from the public, surplus money, and to pump it into areas that are in deficit. Yeah, that's what the bank does effectively. So you have cash, you have a lot of cash, you put in the bank aggregates all that, and they lend to those who need the money. Well, the way we're going, and with technology, the guys who need the money very soon will be able to talk directly with the guys that have the extra cash. Yeah, which will then question what's the role of banks, what's the role of financial planners. Yeah, and it's inevitable, it's going to happen. Not only in finance, even in medicine, we're seeing that. Yeah, people go to places like WebMD and so on, and they can. I'm not advocating self-medication, but you can see things that you can do directly without having to go through a nurse, etc. Even in the legal field, yeah, we see a lot of technology where people can do a lot of things that ordinarily would have required a lawyer in the past. So I'm seeing what I would humbly call the democratization of finance. Yeah, technology will enable a lot of people to do things directly without having to go through the medium of a financial intermediary, which is what banks and other financial institutions are. And it's an exciting thing. Yeah, it's a very exciting time. It's going to happen, almost certainly.
All right. So thank you very much. You did mention that add value. This is something you can never get anywhere but on this conference, brought to you by Mr. Hassan Usman. He has brought corporate financial planning right to your doorstep. Make sure you add value to your business. Once again, thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate you coming on board. WenA is so grateful to have had you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. I'm deeply honored. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are privileged to have had him. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will go for a quick break, 5 minutes break. And then when we come back, please make sure you join in, because we'll have our keynote speaker touch on empowerment for impact. We all need that information. We all need that session as well. So at this point in time, I'll plead that we are going for a quick break, 5 minutes break. And when we come back, we will have our keynote speaker. Thank you.